Hey everyone, this is Mason Hutchison. Welcome back to the HerbRally podcast. Today's episode is with Maria Noël Groves, and she submitted a 40-minute class on Minty Nootropics to our new membership area called HerbRally Schoolhouse. And what are nootropics, you might ask? Basically, in a nutshell, they're herbs that support the brain, or brain health. So in this class, she specifically talks about nootropics and the Lamiaceae, or mint family. And in today's show, you'll just get a little snippet of it. The full class is, as I mentioned, our schoolhouse. It's our exclusive member area, and it costs $10 a month. We also have an annual option, which is $100 a year, which essentially gets you 2 free months per year. But yeah, we thought $10 a month was a really good deal, and specific to our podcast listeners, we're giving away the first 30 days for free. So if you want to try out HerbRally Schoolhouse, just go to herbrally.com/schoolhouse. And when you're checking out, just enter coupon code podcast. That'll get your first 30 days for free. That way you could check out what we've been creating here. But yeah, every week we just release new content in the member area. And the latest one is this 40-minute class with Maria Noël Groves. To learn more about Maria, just head to wintergreenbotanicals.com. Again, that's wintergreenbotanicals.com. Also, before we get into the show, you may have noticed in the last episode our new intro music and a little bit of a rap that goes along with it. I want to give a shout out to Victor Jimenez, aka Emcee Calico. We actually connected through HerbRally. Victor listens to the show, and I saw some of his music on Instagram, and I asked if he wanted to write something for the show, and he agreed. So thanks, Emcee Calico. As I mentioned previously on the podcast, Amanda and I are going to be going down to California next month to hang out with a bunch of different herbalists, and we actually get to hang out with Emcee Calico. So really looking forward to that. If you want to check out more of Emcee Calico's work, all you have to do is search Emcee Calico on Spotify, and it's spelled E-M-C-E-E, Emcee Calico. That's C-A-L-I-C-O. All right, that's going to do it for me. Now enjoy these disclaimers and the new intro by Emcee Calico. All right, I'll talk to you on the next podcast. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention, Emcee Calico also made the beat that goes along with it. So, and I know he took some inspiration from some natural elements, which was really cool, that he incorporated it into the beat. So he wrote the raps as well as produced the beat. So, okay, now that's going to really do it for me for now. Enjoy today's episode with Maria Noël Groves. I'll talk to you next time. Take care. A little bit of housekeeping before we get into the show. The content in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to cure, diagnose, treat, or prevent any disease. This information has not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. We are not doctors, nor do we play one on the internet. Please seek advice from a qualified healthcare professional. Okay, Emcee Calico, take it away.
Yeah. Smoking herbal blends. We need some Mullen and some Kush, my brethren. While listening to HerbRally podcast again. Herbalism at its finest with Mason Hutchinson. Yeah.
Hey herby people, I'm Maria Noël Groves, and today I'm here to speak with you briefly about some of my favorite herbs for a very interesting area of the body to me, and that is the mint family herbs for the brain. And we call these nootropics. These are herbs that nootropic basically means smart drug or smart herb. So nootropic herbs or nootropic herbs are herbs that support our brain health, our cognition, our focus, and all that good stuff. And, while they can certainly be helpful and supportive for folks who might be dealing with more serious mental scenarios, they're also really nice for just day-to-day cognition and focus, and they may also have benefits with long-term use. But another thing I really love about them is that they also tend to work pretty quickly and will have some benefits within minutes to an hour or so after consuming them. So let's dive in. This is a small part of a much bigger conversation that I have in some of my brain boosting classes. But because these are such readily accessible herbs, I think they are really nice ones to get to know and familiarize yourself with. You probably already know most, if not all, of these plants, but you might just not be thinking of them in this way. And so I want to introduce you to, more superpowers that your favorite plants have. So I do have just some basic slides with information about and my books and other general information about me, but I'm not really going to get too into that right now. I want to dive right into the plant material. And I also really love to talk about my basic safety rules, and I'm not, in the interest of time, going to spend time discussing all of these things, but you have the slide here, and if you're new to my teachings or you're new to herbalism, I highly recommend pressing pause and just reading through those, because they're not just basic disclaimers. I think they're also really important things to keep in mind for the health and well-being of your body, and so that you're approaching things in a really safe and empowered way. So press pause and read them if you're not already familiar, and then we can move along. So your mint family is one of my favorite plant families, and really a favorite plant family amongst many herbalists and gardeners, because many of the herbs that we grow to use for medicine as well as for culinary benefits tend to be in the mint family. They often are really easy to grow in the garden. They often have really lovely flavors and aromas, and that just makes them a very accessible set of garden plants. And if you don't have a garden, then chances are you still have really easy access to these plants, because they're popularly sold in grocery stores and farm stands and local farms, especially an herb farm. And you can also buy these herbs dried. And while I love working with them fresh, they also generally do work quite nicely dry. So most of them do retain quite a bit of their properties when they're dried. And just botanically speaking, the mint family is a very large family of plants. We're just going to focus in on a few of them that tend to be particularly great at supporting brain health and cognition. But botanically, they have some similar characteristics when you're in that family. And so if you're not already aware, the mint family plants, or the Lamiaceae or Labiataceae, this particular plant family has square-ish stems usually. They also have opposite leaves, as you can see in that spearmint in the photo there. And so whether they're branching or it's just their leaves, they're going to be opposite one another. And generally speaking, they usually do have entire leaves. So leaves that are not compound, they're not divided up into like individual leaflets. It's usually just one leaf, especially the plants we're going to be talking about today. They're often aromatic, but not always. And they do also have these really cute lipped irregular flowers. So they're not perfectly symmetrical all the way around. They're bilaterally symmetrical. So if you cut them like up to down, and you cut them sort of lengthwise and you folded them together, they would match up. But if you cut them horizontally and folded those flowers down, they wouldn't match up. So they're technically bilaterally symmetrical, but because they're not perfectly 100% symmetrical on all sides, we might call them asymmetrical or irregular flowers. And we have a lot of different medicinal qualities that are often seen in this plant family, and these are general rules of thumb, so it doesn't always apply to every plant in the plant family. But oftentimes you'll see these plants being really helpful for supporting immune health. They may have direct antimicrobial properties. They often have nervous system benefits. Sometimes they're uplifting. Some of the herbs we're going to talk about today are uplifting or even a little bit energizing, but many are also nervine or nervine and calming. Many are respiratory tonics that help open up the lungs while also disinfecting the lungs. And they also tend to have digestive properties, sort of stimulating digestion. So we have better digestive juices and better peristalsis, moving food through, and also having some carminative action to help ease gas and relax muscle spasms throughout the body, but particularly in the digestive tract. So lots of really fun things. They're also oftentimes antioxidant, anti-inflammatory. They often do support focus and cognition, which is what we're going to focus on today. They often energetically are kind of moving, dispersive. Many of them, most of them tend to be a little bit on the drying side, and most of them tend to be a little bit more on the warming side of energetics. And that will vary quite a bit from plant to plant as far as how warming it might be. Like bee balm, which is not one of my primary herbs that I think of for cognition, but bee balm is a very spicy, warming hot herb in the mint family, whereas lemon balm maybe is a little bit warming, but I think it's a little bit more neutral. It's not so overtly warming like some of our other spicier mint family plants. And the ones that we're going to focus in on today include spearmint, peppermint, rosemary, holy basil, sage, and then certainly, while we're not going to focus in on them, lavender and regular basil also have ways in which they interact with our brain and our nervous system as well. So neurotransmitters are a key thing to keep in mind when we're talking about brain health, because neurotransmitters are the messengers of our nervous system. And, they're very important in our brain. They're also very important throughout our body. And so in our brain sort of tends to be what we think of as our central command, data processing center of our body, although we do have other areas of our body like our digestive systems that have quite a significant importance in our neurotransmitters and in controlling what goes on in our body. The vagal nerve and the microbiome are also really important. But for simplicity, we're really going to focus in on brain. And these neurotransmitters are protein-based, which is of note because we do need to have adequate amounts of protein in our diet. That's not too hard to do, whether you're eating meat or you're eating only plants. It's usually not too difficult to get protein, but our body will be utilizing those complete proteins to assemble our neurotransmitters. And we have at least 30 different neurotransmitters throughout our brain and our body that have all sorts of different roles. And we're going to focus in on one in particular in just a moment. But generally speaking, as we're talking about the neurotransmitters, they move quickly across synapses through electrical charges, and that really is electricity that's moving them along those nerves. The nerves themselves are lined with fat, so having healthy fat in the diet is also really important for having a healthy nervous system, because we're going to use fat and cholesterol to create the lining of all of our cells, but particularly that nerve lining. And so as they move across, they kind of jump across. I think of them kind of like Spider-Man going from like building to building and just sort of jumping across, except that unlike Spider-Man, you don't really have the same neurotransmitter, going and continuing along. Really, it's this like relay race that happens. And once the neurotransmitters get to the other side, they are often broken down pretty quickly with enzymes and via reuptake and other mechanisms. So nerves can function very quickly. They move very fast across these synapses, but that process can be stopped and broken down pretty quickly as well. And we can't synthesize neurotransmitters with herbs. Like, we don't have herbs that just provide those neurotransmitters, generally speaking. But what the herbs do seem to do is affect how the neurotransmitters are produced, how they bind, how they're reuptaked, how the enzymes work as far as like how quickly or not quickly those neurotransmitters are broken down. And so we can use drugs and herbs to affect those things versus say like, here's the neurotransmitter. Our body makes those neurotransmitters, but we don't really have a way of just taking them as a supplement. What we're doing is we're affecting the various processes that determine how strong their binding ability is to receptors and how well they're being made, if we can, have the base materials to make them more easily, and how quickly or not quickly are those broken down so that their levels end up dropping. And so nutrition is a really big piece of all of this, but we can also turn to our herbs.
And that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the HerbRally podcast. If you'd like to hear more from us here at HerbRally, we now have a text message community, believe it or not. Basically, it's just updates from us. We send about 1 to 7 texts per week, notifying you about new events, videos, courses, podcasts. You get the idea. It's pretty much like our email newsletter, just in text form. So if you'd like to receive text messages from HerbRally, just text JOIN, that's JOIN, to the number 541-256-2895. Again, that's JOIN to number 541-256-2895. And to stop receiving texts, that's easy too. Just text STOP to the same number. It'll opt you out immediately. Okay, thanks again for listening. Have a great rest of your day.